I arrived at our cabin for our anniversary, but my husband wasn't there. Instead, a male escort handed me a letter. "Your husband is spending the weekend with his lover," it read, "and he hired me to keep you company." Happy April Fools, my husband thought he'd broken me. He didn't know he'd just handed me my revenge. April 1st had rolled around. I was driving down that rugged, familiar dirt road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel of my old Honda. My exhaustion was bone deep. I'd just finished a 3-hour drive from my last teaching gig. It was the end of the term, and I'd spent the last 48 hours in a caffeine-fueled haze, grading a mountain of final papers on 19th-century literature. I remember the last paper I graded, some kid's wild theory about Moby Dick. I'd given him a B for sheer creativity. All I wanted was to get to our family cabin, the little A-frame my parents had left me. It was my sanctuary. It was along the route back home to the city, and my husband, Martin, was supposed to meet me there. He was a nurse, and his schedule was always the opposite of mine. But we had planned this weekend for months. It was our anniversary. 7 years. He'd promised to drive up the day before, Thursday, to get the fireplace going, stock the place with groceries and wine. He said he was going to cook for me. All I had to do was show up. The trip had taken longer than I planned. A truck had overturned on the highway, and I'd been stuck in gridlock for an hour, just stewing. By the time I turned onto the cabin road, the sky was already a deep, bruised purple. My new job as a traveling college instructor, piecing together contracts at 3 different community colleges, often kept me away from home. My salary wasn't great, but it was a start. I'd been so eagerly anticipating this weekend, just to be still. Just to be with him. Martin was, well, he was Martin. He was captivating. He was the charming one, the one everyone loved. As a male nurse, he had this blend of strength and compassion that just drew people in. He was handsome, and he knew it. His scrubs, always perfectly pressed, turned heads at the hospital, though he swore he never noticed the attention. I'd first crossed paths with him 7 years earlier, at my best friend Teresa's college graduation. He was her roommate's friend, and the 4 of us ended up at a noisy bar for dinner. He and I just clicked. I was the quiet one, the nerdy academic. He was the life of the party. He spent the whole night focused just on me, making me laugh, making me feel like the only person in the room. Back then, he'd been so charming. Less than a year later, we were married. What truly drew me to him was that magnetic personality. He was warm, approachable, effortlessly sociable. He made me feel seen. Lately, we'd been seriously discussing starting a family. The big conversation. We were looking at houses online, talking about mortgages. My little 2-bedroom condo was fine for us, but not for a baby. We were saving every dime from my salary and his, trying to build up a down payment. We were supposed to be a team. As I navigated the final, twisting stretch of road, I couldn't help but smile when the cabin finally came into view. I'd been imagining this moment all day. I'd walk in, the fire would be roaring, he'd hand me a glass of wine, and I could finally just collapse. But something was wrong. I pulled up, the crunch of gravel under my tires the only sound. Martin's sensible gray sedan was nowhere to be seen. The cabin was dark. Not just evening dark, but cold, empty dark. I thought about calling him, but my phone had lost service 10 miles back, like it always did. With a sigh, I parked the car, grabbed my heavy overnight bag, and walked up to the front door. It was locked. Of course it was. But I knew exactly where we kept the spare key, under the chipped gnome statue by the porch steps. I fished it out, my fingers cold. The lock clicked, and I pushed the door open. Martin? The air that hit me was cold. Stale. It smelled like dust and pine cleaner, not wood smoke and cooking. I flicked on the light. Nothing. No overnight bag by the door. No boots kicked off on the mat. No jacket thrown over the chair. Martin? I called again, louder this time. I walked into the kitchen, my heart starting to thud in a way I didn't like. I opened the fridge. It was completely, utterly empty. No food. No drinks. Not even the bottle of wine he'd promised. I walked into the small bedroom. The bed was perfectly made, the quilt tucked in tight, just as I'd left it 2 months ago. His suitcase wasn't there. His toiletries weren't in the bathroom. My first thought was panic. A cold, sharp fear. Was he in an accident? Did something happen on the drive up? Did his car break down? I ran back to my car, slammed the door, and turned the key just to see if my phone could get a single bar of service. Nothing. No service. It was too late to safely drive back down the twisting, dark roads. I turned off the car, my mind racing. I figured I'd wait. Maybe I'd mixed up his arrival time. Maybe he got called into the hospital. I sat there in the dark, in my cold car, for a long time. 10 minutes. 20. The silence of the woods pressed in. I was getting really, truly scared. I was about to risk the drive back to town to find a payphone when my phone, still in my hand, lit up. Not with a call. The lock screen just came on. And I saw the date. Friday, April 1st. Damn it, Martin, I muttered, the words fogging up the windshield. My panic instantly curdled into pure, hot annoyance. April Fool's Day. Of course. Every year, he tried to outdo himself with pranks. He was relentless. One year, he'd replaced the sugar with salt right before I made my morning coffee. I'd sputtered and spit it all over the kitchen. He'd laughed for a week. Another time, he'd hidden little plastic spiders in all my dresser drawers. He thought it was hilarious when I screamed. This was elaborate, even for him. Making me drive 3 hours, worried sick, to an empty cabin. He was probably hiding somewhere nearby, in the woods, filming me on his phone, ready to jump out and yell April Fools. All right, Martin, very funny. I yelled, getting out of the car and slamming the door. You win. The prank is great. Now, can we please just start our weekend? Silence. The wind just whispered through the pines. Now I was just irritated. I was tired, I was hungry, I was cold, and I was in no mood for this. If this was his idea of a joke, he'd taken it way too far. I debated leaving. Just driving home and letting him sit here alone in the dark, wondering where I was. But my own exhaustion, the thought of that 3-hour drive back, it stopped me. Fine. I yelled at the empty woods. I'm going to bed. This is the worst prank ever, just so you know. I grabbed my bag, stomped back to the door, and fumbled with the key again. I was not going to play along. I was going to go inside, put on my pajamas, get into that cold bed, and read my book. He could explain himself tomorrow. I was just pushing the door open, fuming, when headlights appeared. They flickered through the trees, winding their way down that same dirt road. My annoyance eased, replaced by a grudging relief. That had to be him. He'd seen me going inside, realized I wasn't playing his stupid game, and was finally giving up the prank. I stood on the porch, crossing my arms, waiting for him to pull up so I could give him a piece of my mind. But as the car drew closer, I realized it wasn't Martin's sensible gray sedan. It was a black Mustang, sleek and low to the ground. An expensive car. My brow furrowed. Did he seriously go this far for a prank? Rent a muscle car? The car rolled to a stop a few feet from me, its engine rumbling, a deep, powerful sound. It idled there for a moment. Then, the driver's window slid down with a quiet whir. A man leaned out. He couldn't have been more than 24, 25. And he was beautiful. Like, distractingly handsome, with dark, wavy hair and eyes that seemed to look right through me, even in the glare of his own headlights. This was definitely not one of Martin's friends from the hospital. "Are you Caroline Miller?" he asked. His voice was smooth, self-assured. I crossed my arms, my annoyance flooding back, now mixed with confusion. This was the most ridiculous prank. "Who's asking? Is Martin paying you for this? The joke's over, okay? It stopped being funny an hour ago. You can tell him." The man didn't smile. He just looked at me, his expression almost bored. "I'm serious," he said. "My name is Shane. I was hired to deliver this and make sure you read it." He put the car in park, the engine noise cutting off, leaving us in a sudden, ringing silence. He got out. He was tall, wearing a nice leather jacket that probably cost more than my last paycheck, and he smelled faintly of expensive, spicy cologne. He was holding a sealed, cream-colored envelope. I looked down. My name, Caroline, was written on the front in Martin's perfect, meticulous, left-handed script. My irritation vanished. It was replaced by a cold, prickling dread that started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips. This wasn't a prank. This was real. My hands were shaking as I took the envelope. It felt heavy. Thick paper. Expensive. I tore open the seal, my fingernail catching on the paper. I pulled out the letter, a single folded sheet, and unfolded it. "Caroline, my love," it began. I let out a small breath. Okay. Maybe it was okay. Maybe this was just the clue to the prank. "See? It's..." I looked up at the man, Shane, a confused smile on my face. He just shook his head. "Keep reading." I looked back down. "First and foremost, I need you to know that I love you now more than ever. Our marriage has always been something I cherished. I never once wanted to be with anyone else. I've had my share of admirers, you know that, but none ever tempted me. Until recently." My blood ran cold. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely read the words. Thankfully, nothing happened, until it did. "There's a new doctor at the university hospital, Dr. Miles." Dr. Miles. I knew that name. At least, I knew of him. The new hotshot surgeon, the one Martin had been mentioning for weeks. The one he was so impressed by. "He's brilliant, Caroline," he'd said. "Just brilliant. I've been developing a crush," the letter continued. "It's nothing like love, just pure, maddening attraction." I realized the only way to clear my head was to confront it. He's a man, as you know. I've been confused about these feelings. I thought they were just admiration. But they're more. And that's why I left town with him today. We'll spend the weekend together, just us. We'll get this foolishness out of my system, and I'll come home Sunday evening, refreshed and ready to move on. Ready to be the husband you deserve. My knees felt weak. I had to lean against my car to stay upright. A man. He was cheating on me, with a man. The man he told me was brilliant. All those late nights at the hospital he said were mandatory overtime, was he with him? I must have made some kind of sound, a small, choked gasp. "You okay?" Shane asked, his voice flat. I just shook my head, my eyes glued to the page. "Happy April Fools" was scrawled at the bottom, like a sick joke. But the words above it, they weren't a joke. This was his confession, wrapped in the cowardly, disgusting disguise of a prank. And then I saw the postscript. The part that made my stomach churn and the blood rush to my head. P.S. To keep things fair and prevent you from feeling abandoned or tempted to stray, I hired Shane, an elite, no-strings-attached companion, to offer you the same experience I'm having. I couldn't bring myself to let him stay in our bed at home, so I chose the cabin. I'll be back by 6 p.m. Sunday. We'll never speak of it again. I love you, and only you. Always. My vision blurred. I looked up from the letter, this piece of trash in my hand, and looked at the beautiful man standing in front of me. Shane. He was an escort. A prostitute. My husband of 7 years, the man I was trying to have a baby with, had hired me an escort. He was just watching me, his face unreadable in the porch light. You got a pen? He asked casually, as if he'd just delivered a pizza. I looked at him, my mind a total blank. Yeah, I managed to say. But I'm not signing anything. Not for me, he replied. You're supposed to confirm you got the letter. For his records. For his records. Like this was a business transaction. I felt a surge of pure, cold rage, so strong it momentarily stopped the shaking. Without missing a beat, I pulled a pen from my briefcase in the car. I flipped the letter over and scribbled on the back, my pen digging into the thick paper. Delivered by Shane. Hired by Martin Miller. Offer declined. I shoved it back at him. His faint smile faltered. He looked at the paper, then at me. You sure? You're turning down quite the opportunity. He gestured to himself, a slow, theatrical spin. He paid a lot for this. I barely glanced up. I'm sure. Drive safe. The roads get tricky at night. I paused, then added, and don't tell my husband I said no. He might want his money back. The man actually laughed. A short, sharp sound. Fair enough. But are you really certain? You seem like a decent person. I could make this worth your while. Thanks, but no, I replied, my gaze drifting to the darkening horizon. I just wanted him to leave. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. I've got enough on my mind already. He sighed, pulled a pen from his own jacket, and signed the letter himself. Okay. He started to walk back to his car, then paused. Look, mind if I crash here tonight? Just on the couch? Driving back on that dark road right now, it freaks me out. And I've been driving all day. I should have said no. I should have told him to get lost, that it wasn't my problem. But the truth was, I was terrified. The thought of being alone in that cabin, knowing what I now knew, knowing my entire life had just exploded. I couldn't bear it. Having another human being nearby, even this escort, felt safer than being alone. All right, I said, my voice flat. I looked at his license, which he was still holding. David Davis. That was his real name. But let's be clear. No funny business. You'll sleep in the spare room. The little one off the kitchen. Try anything at all, and you're out. I mean it. David's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Wow. That's a first. This is, actually kind of cool. Cool? I raised an eyebrow, unlocking the cabin door again. Yeah, David said with a shrug, grabbing his own small duffel bag from the Mustang. I'm, thinking about going full-time as an escort. My tuition's due next week, and I'm graduating soon. I need the cash. My expression shifted from pure misery to confusion. Tuition? For what? Textile engineering, he said, following me inside. I was so surprised I almost laughed. It was the most absurd thing I'd heard all night. Textile engineering? No kidding. A friend of mine, Teresa, the one I was best friends with in college, she runs a company that's hiring in that field. Once you graduate, shoot me your resume. I'll see if I can get you an interview. His whole face lit up. He stepped forward, as if to hug me, a gesture of pure, surprised gratitude. I immediately held up a hand. Sorry. No contact. Spare room is down the hall to the left. Bathrooms at the end. Don't touch anything else. We went inside. The silence in the cabin was deafening. I just stood in the middle of the living room, still holding my bag, the letter crumpled in my fist. I didn't know what to do. Should I cry? Should I scream? Should I start breaking things? David disappeared for a moment and came back holding 3 canvas grocery bags. He sent these with me, he said, his voice gentle. Groceries. Wine. Cheese. Of course he did. My husband, the meticulous planner. He'd even catered his own wife's affair. The absolute bastard. Well, David said, holding up a bottle of expensive Cabernet. Guess we shouldn't let this go to waste. You want me to start a fire? I just nodded, numb. We sat by the warmth of the crackling fireplace. We drank Martin's wine. We ate the expensive cheese and crackers he'd packed. We didn't talk for a long time. The initial awkwardness was a thick blanket over us. He was a 24-year-old male escort. I was a 33-year-old betrayed wife. What on earth was there to say? And then I started to talk. I don't even know why. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was just the fact that he was a total stranger, a blank slate, and I knew I would never see him again. The words just came pouring out. 7 years, I whispered, staring into the flames. We've been married for 7 years. We met in college. My best friend, Teresa, was dating his roommate. He was so charming. So alive. He made me feel. I don't know. He made me feel like I was the only person in the room. David just listened. He didn't nod, he didn't say I'm sorry. He just sat there, on the other end of the couch, watching me, his expression unreadable. I told him everything, I continued, the words tumbling out. How my parents adored him. My dad died 2 years ago. He loved Martin like a son. He left us a small inheritance. Not much, but we were saving it. Saving it for a house. I told David about our plans. The specific house we'd been looking at online, a little blue Cape Cod with a big backyard. I told him how we'd just met with a mortgage broker last week, how we'd combined my meager salary with his, trying to see what we could afford. We were going to start a family, I said, and that's when the first tear slipped down my cheek. The word family hung in the air, a cruel joke. We had an appointment. At the fertility clinic. Next month. I don't understand. The tears finally came then. Not a few polite drops. I was sobbing. The ugly, gasping, snotty kind of sobs that steal your breath and make your whole body ache. I was humiliated, breaking down in front of this stranger. This escort. I buried my face in my hands, my shoulders shaking. David didn't move. He didn't touch me. He didn't pat my back or say it's going to be okay. He just sat there, patiently, letting me fall apart. After a minute, he quietly got up, went to the bathroom, and came back with the box of tissues. He didn't hand it to me. He just slid it across the coffee table, so it was in my reach. That simple, human act, devoid of any desire, any pity, it was exactly what I needed. It was respectful. I finally pulled myself together, wiping my face with a handful of tissues. God, I'm sorry, I mumbled. I'm still not going to sleep with you. David gave a soft, sad smile. I figured. That's what I respect about you. He took a sip of wine. Now, can I tell you my story? Of course, I nodded, my voice rough. We've got nothing but time. Leaning back, David watched the fire flicker as he began. I grew up in a tiny mountain town in Kentucky. My dad, he left before I was born. My mom, she has MS, multiple sclerosis. The medical bills. He shook his head, his gaze distant. They buried us. We lost our house. He told me school was his escape. He was smart, especially in math and science. But he had to start working at 12. Cleaning houses, waiting tables, mucking stalls, anything to help out. While other kids were going to dances, going on dates, he said, I was pulling double shifts. I was just invisible. The poor kid. He paused to take another sip of wine. My scholarship was based on my math and science scores. It got me into a good school, but scholarships don't cover everything. I needed cash. For books, rent, and for my mom's medication. The stuff the insurance wouldn't cover. His expression darkened. I didn't know how to handle anything. I'd never really dated. I met this girl my sophomore year. Thought she was the one. She was amazing. Smart, funny. She seemed different. Didn't even try to kiss me until the third date. What happened? I asked, my own story momentarily forgotten. Christmas break came, he said bitterly. She ghosted me. 10 straight days of silence. I thought I'd done something wrong. When I came back, she called like nothing had happened. It took weeks, but I forgave her. I was stupid. We started sleeping together. One night, I told her I loved her. He just stared into the fire. She just froze. Said nothing. Then she broke down. Admitted she had a husband back home. And 2 kids. He was deployed. She'd been cheating on her family with me. Oh my God, I whispered. Please tell me you kicked her ass, I said, my voice dry. David grinned, but it was a grim, mirthless expression. Oh, I did. Metaphorically. I told her exactly what I thought of her, right there in the dining hall. It felt amazing. But after that, I stopped trusting people. Relationships seemed like traps. Just transactions. He sighed. I needed money, fast. My mom's small inheritance from her grandmother? The little bit of money she had saved? It was gone in 6 months, eaten by medical debt. My roommate, he was the one who suggested escorting. You're a good-looking guy, David, he said. And you're a great listener. Rich women will pay just for that. His smile faded as he set the glass down. So I tried it. And he was right. It was strictly platonic at first. Just companionship. Dinner dates. Charity events. It paid really well. But the expenses kept piling up. My mom's condition got worse. She needed a new wheelchair. A new treatment. Eventually, he said, his voice barely a whisper, I expanded my services. Hands only. I swore to God I'd never, ever cross that line. I'm graduating in May. I was just trying to get us to the finish line. Then, he said, and he finally looked at me, your husband called. He found me on a website. Offered me $3,000 for this weekend. Said you were incredible in bed. That you were well above average and that he felt guilty leaving you alone. He said he had to scratch an itch. To move on. He wanted to make it even. Silence settled over us, thick and heavy, as we watched the embers smolder. He was just a kid. A kid drowning in debt, trying to save his mom. And my husband, with his good hospital job and his comfortable life, had used his money to drag this kid into our mess. If I'm that good, why would he even think about cheating? The question hung in the air, unspoken this time. David didn't have an answer. After a long while, I did something that surprised me. I moved across the couch, draped an arm around his shoulders, and kissed his forehead. "Thanks," I whispered. "You turned the worst day of my life into something a little less awful." David met my gaze, sincerity shining in his eyes. "Your husband's a fool. Risking a woman like you, that's not love. It's selfishness. If life were fair, I'd meet someone like you under different circumstances. And start fresh." We hugged, tightly. It wasn't sexual. It was two people, clinging to each other in a shipwreck. And just like that, lulled by the warmth of the fire, the wine, and the sheer emotional exhaustion, we both fell into an exhausted sleep, right there on the couch. I found out later what was happening while David and I were talking, while we were sharing our broken pieces. Martin was at our apartment. He was, I learned, already regretting the whole thing. The letter, the escort, it all felt like a colossal mistake. Dr. Miles had given him $2,000 to set it all up, and Martin had added $1,000 of our money. Our house money. Dr. Miles was supposed to pick him up, but he just showed up. He pushed past Martin into the apartment, his eyes sweeping the room like he owned it. "Not bad," he remarked, running a hand along our bookshelf. "A little cramped, though." Martin, trying to be assertive for once, told him they needed to go, that he'd booked a resort. But Miles just smirked. "Eager to get me into bed already, huh?" Miles was the one with the power. He was the hotshot surgeon, the one with the big salary, the one Martin was so desperate to impress. And Miles knew it. He demanded they do it right there. In our bed. Martin, my weak, foolish husband, gave in. But it was a disaster. I read the texts later. Miles was crude. Transactional. He wasn't the sophisticated, sensitive man Martin had built up in his head. And then, as he was lying there, Miles sneered, "Bet your wife can't make you feel like this, huh?" That was the breaking point. Martin snapped. He told me he bolted to the bathroom, slamming the door, the reality crashing down on him. The charming, competent Dr. Miles had morphed into someone cold, smug, and exploitative. When Martin finally came out, Miles was sprawled on our bed, grinning, ready for round two. Martin grabbed his clothes from the floor. "We're done," he snapped. "Get out." Miles, realizing he'd pushed too far, finally left. And Martin was left alone in our apartment, in our defiled bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was doing. Wondering if his life was over. The next morning, Saturday, I woke to the smell of sizzling bacon. I was still on the couch, a heavy wool blanket draped over me. I must have been cold. David must have covered me. I stretched with a sleepy groan and rolled over to see him standing at the stove, flipping eggs with practiced ease. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, his hair messy from sleep. "Smells amazing," I murmured, rubbing my eyes. He glanced over his shoulder and smiled. A real smile this time. It lit up his whole face. "How do you like your eggs?" "Scrambled," I yawned. "Like our lives right now." We both laughed. It was a real laugh. He plated the eggs with some toast. He'd found a loaf of bread in the freezer. "Coffee's ready." "Definitely," I replied, swinging my legs off the couch. "But first, bathroom. I'm dying here." After a quick shower, I felt different. More human. I brushed my teeth, took my hair out of its tight, angry bun, and let it fall around my shoulders. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were puffy from crying, but there was something else there, too. A hardness I hadn't seen before. I put on a clean pair of jeans and a sweater. When I came back out, David was sitting at the little kitchen table. "Now that's an improvement," he said with a warm smile. "Really?" I teased, pouring myself a mug of coffee. Wasn't I at least a little tempting before? In my 3-day-old grading outfit? "Oh, absolutely," he admitted, his voice dropping. "I'd have to be 6 feet under not to feel something." "But..." He hesitated. "I'm not interested in Shane. Shane is a product. I want to know David." My playful expression softened. "Caroline Miller. Do you always know exactly what to say?" "Only when it's the truth," he said. We sat down to eat. The bacon was perfect. It was the first real food I'd had in, I don't know. It tasted like hope. Afterward, as we cleared the table, the reality of the situation came back. David reached for his suitcase. "I guess this is goodbye," he said softly. I stepped in front of the door, crossing my arms. "My husband paid for you to stay the whole weekend. $3,000, you said. How about you actually stick around?" David frowned, confused. "But you already said no. Too, you know." "Yeah," I nodded, my tone firm. "And I meant it. But I'm not about to sit here alone, staring at the walls, waiting for my life to officially end. He paid for your time. I'd rather spend the weekend with someone worth my time. Someone who's honest." He hesitated. "I can't sleep with you, Caroline." I meant what I said. If I did, I'd be no better than him. I gave a small shrug. "Who said anything about sleeping together? Let's just talk. There's a stash of board games and playing cards in that closet. We can go for a hike. The weather's nice. Maybe even, I don't know, go for a swim. Unless you forgot to pack a swimsuit." Grinning, David shrugged. "Didn't bring one. But you said no. Watching and teasing isn't the same, right? Especially if you're really thinking about leaving him." I nodded. A cold, hard knot of certainty was forming in my stomach. "Agreed, Mr. Davis." "Ms. Miller," he teased back. "Please. Call me David." "Okay, David," I said. "And you can call me Caroline. Shane is gone." "Deal," he said, his smile bright. "Chantel. I mean, Shane is gone. Don't call me that again." We spent the rest of that Saturday just being. It was surreal. We played a vicious game of Scrabble. He beat me with the word quartz. We went for a long hike up the trail behind the cabin. We talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies. Books we hated. He told me about his engineering projects. I told him about my students. We didn't talk about Martin. We didn't talk about his mom. We just existed. The laughter was easy, echoing across the woods as the weight of the weekend momentarily lifted. By the time we returned to the cabin, flushed and sweaty from the walk, it was late afternoon. I looked at the lake, glittering in the sunlight. Then I looked at David. "Feel like swimming in your underwear?" His smile widened. "Absolutely." This time, I didn't need him to tell me to turn around. We both turned our backs, a gesture of respect. We stripped down to our underwear. I had on my sensible cotton bra and panties. He had on a pair of simple black boxer briefs. "Think you can catch me?" I teased, splashing into the shallow water. "Holy hell, it's freezing," he squealed as the water hit his thighs, his voice going up an octave. "Too late to back out now," I called, laughing, and I lunged toward him. He spun just as I tackled him into the lake. We both hit the water with a loud, ridiculous splash. We resurfaced, sputtering and laughing, water dripping from our faces. He was watching me, his dark eyes shining in the sunlight. "You're not what I expected, Caroline Miller," he said, his voice soft. "Neither are you, David Davis," I whispered. He swam closer. The laughter faded. The air between us was charged. I could feel the cold water, but I could also feel the heat coming off his skin. And then he kissed me. It was fierce, and raw, and undeniable. It wasn't romantic. It was human. It was all the anger at Martin, all the betrayal, all the loneliness of the last 24 hours pouring out. It was a kiss that said, "I'm alive." The lake's chill vanished as our bodies pressed together. And I kissed him back. I grabbed his shoulders and pulled him closer. In that moment, Martin didn't exist. Dr. Miles didn't exist. There was just the cold water and David's mouth on mine, and it was the most real thing I had felt in 7 years. We broke apart, both of us breathless. We didn't talk about it. We just swam back to the shore, got out quickly, and wrapped ourselves in the towels we'd brought down. We walked back to the cabin in silence. We slept in our separate rooms that night. The spare room for him, the master bedroom for me. But everything had changed. The line had been crossed. The next morning, Sunday, the mood was different. We were quiet as we packed our bags. Reality was creeping back in. We were two strangers who had shared something intense. Now what? "Martin's not supposed to be back until this afternoon," I said, my voice hard, unfamiliar even to me. "Once he's back, I'm going to my apartment. It's my apartment, too. I'm not just going to let him have it." "You shouldn't go alone," David said, zipping his duffel bag. He looked at me, his face serious. "He's unpredictable. And he's a coward. Cowards are dangerous." "I know." I looked at him. This kid, this escort, who had been more of a man in 2 days than my husband had been in 7 years. I could use a hand. Just moving some things. I don't want to be around when this whole mess blows up. I want to be gone before he gets there. David nodded slowly. "I'm not letting you go back there alone. Let's go." We tossed our bags into the trunk of my old Honda. We left his Mustang there. I'd figure that out later. We headed down the winding forest road. The crisp morning air flowed through the open windows. On the drive back, I wasn't Caroline the victim. I was a woman with a plan. The silence in the car wasn't awkward this time. It was a planning silence. As soon as we got a bar of service, my phone buzzed with a dozen missed calls and texts from Martin. All from last night. "Caroline, where are you?" "Baby, I'm so sorry, it was a mistake. Please call me." I ignored them. My first call was to my bank. "Yes, I need to report my joint credit card stolen. Card number, yes. And I need to freeze all activity on my joint checking account, number 4-5-6-7. Yes, a total freeze. Effective immediately." David just drove, listening, a small, grim smile on his face. My second call was to my lawyer. I'd used her a few years ago to draft my will after my dad passed. "Hi, Susan, it's Caroline Miller. I need to schedule an emergency appointment." "Yes, as soon as possible. Tomorrow morning, if you have it." It's about a divorce. When we got to my town, I didn't have him drop me off at a hotel. I had him drive straight to my condo building. "Can you come up?" I asked. I need a witness. And a bodyguard, maybe. Just help me pack a bag. I don't want to be alone in there. He nodded. "Lead the way." We pulled into the garage. I used my key fob. We went up the elevator. I unlocked the door to my apartment. Our apartment. It smelled wrong. It smelled like Martin. And something else. A faint, musky cologne that wasn't his. Dr. Miles. Bile rose in my throat. I walked into the living room. And his eyes, David's eyes, landed on the framed wedding photo above the fireplace. Me and Martin, grinning on our wedding day, 7 years ago. A radiant bride and a groom who looked like he'd won the lottery. Why would he risk this? David murmured, more to himself than to me. For what? I went into my office. I started printing bank statements. Mortgage documents. Anything with my name and his on it. I was unraveling the financial ties that bound us. And then I came out, holding a stack of papers. He wanted me to have an experience, I said, my voice shaking with a cold, pure rage I had never felt before. I think he should know I did. David looked at me, confused. He wanted to defile our marriage, I said. Our bed. With him. He wanted to make it even. Fine. I looked at the unmade bed, the sheets all crumpled from them. I wanted to burn them. Caroline, what are you? I pointed to Martin's closet. The man was meticulous about his clothes. Find something fitting, I said, my voice like ice. Something he loves. David looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw he understood completely. He wasn't a kid anymore. He was my ally. He walked to Martin's closet and pulled out Martin's expensive silk pajamas. The ones he only wore on special occasions. The ones he'd worn on our honeymoon. Perfect, I whispered. We went into the bedroom. I couldn't touch those sheets. I grabbed them with the tips of my fingers, balled them up, and threw them in the hallway. I would burn them later. We put on a fresh set of linens. Clean, white sheets. And then, we staged a scene. We didn't sleep together. It was something else entirely. It was a performance. It was an act of war. It was a cold, calculated, strategic move. We messed up the clean sheets. We opened a bottle of wine from the fridge, my wine, and left it, half empty, on the nightstand with 2 glasses. And we left evidence. I don't need to be graphic. We were creative. We left a literal, symbolic, unmistakable reminder of what he had sacrificed. It was cold, and it felt right. Afterward, as if in a trance, we stripped the bed again. We balled up the evidence, the clean white sheets, his silk pajamas, and tossed them on the floor in a heap. Then, I moved through the house like a woman with a purpose. Every framed photo of us. I smashed the glass and threw them in a trash bag. The wedding album, tossed without hesitation. In the nightstand drawer, I found the diamond engagement ring he'd given me. It had been his grandmother's. I slipped it into my pocket. It was a family heirloom, and his family wasn't getting it back. But my own wedding band, that I left behind. Right on the nightstand, in the center, where he couldn't miss it. No note. No explanation. Just silence. I packed a bag. My toiletries. My work clothes. My passport. The key to our safe deposit box, where my grandmother's inheritance jewelry was. David helped me carry it all down to the car. He was silent. He just helped. He drove me to a nice hotel across town. The kind with a kitchenette. Are you going to be okay, Caroline? He asked, as he set my bag down inside the sterile, anonymous room. I looked at him, this strange, beautiful man who had become my unlikely co-conspirator. I'm just getting started, I told him. I can picture it. I've played the scene in my head 1,000 times since then. Martin gets home Sunday evening, probably around 7. He's whistling. He's nervous, ready to lie, ready to apologize and spin his story about how Dr. Miles was confused and how he was the victim. He heads straight for the laundry room, stripping off his clothes, determined to erase every trace of his mistake before I get home. In his single-minded focus, he misses the telltale signs: my travel bag gone from the hallway closet, my favorite mug not in the drying rack, my toothbrush missing from the bathroom. Only when he goes into the bedroom to change does reality crash down. He reaches for his watch on the nightstand. And there, where his own watch usually sits, is my wedding band. Neatly placed. Deliberate. Like a final word spoken without sound. His heart stops. He probably checks his own hand. He left his ring on all weekend. He's such an idiot. Panic tightens his throat. He fumbles for his phone and calls me. It goes straight to voicemail. My phone is off, sitting on the hotel nightstand. He leaves a message. I still have it saved. Caroline? Baby, where are you? Please, don't shut me out. I saw your ring. I know you're furious, but I need you to hear me out. Nothing happened with Dr. Miles. I mean, we flirted, kissed, maybe crossed a line, but I stopped it. I swear. I realized how stupid I was, how much I was risking. And no matter what happened between you and that escort, I forgive you. We can move past this. He pauses, desperate. I came home today, please just come home. I love you. I've always loved you. We can fix this. Exhausted, he ends the call. He decides to clean up. To make the bed. To erase the whole weekend, to pretend it never happened. He trudges into the bedroom and pulls back the covers. His breath catches. A dark, unmistakable stain spreads across the center of the mattress. The sharp, musky scent hits him. And next to the bed, tossed on the floor in a heap, his favorite silk pajamas, stained and crumpled. The neighbors later told my lawyer they heard a scream. A man's scream. Full of rage, and disbelief, and pure, primal panic. You son of a bitch, he shrieked, stumbling backward. They heard a crash. He'd thrown the bedside lamp against the wall. Then they heard him in the bathroom, retching, emptying his stomach into the toilet. I took the week off from work, citing a family emergency. David offered to stay in town, at another hotel down the street. As a witness, he'd said. Or a bodyguard. That guy, he's not stable, Caroline. I accepted. I spent Monday morning with my lawyer, Susan. I told her everything. The letter. The escort. Dr. Miles. The staged scene. I held nothing back. She just listened, her expression grim. When I was done, she leaned back. Caroline, she said, we are going to take him to the cleaners. On Tuesday night, I was starving. I'd been living on hotel coffee and granola bars. I'm hungry, I told David over the phone. I want a steak. Let's go to Silver's Steakhouse. It was the most expensive restaurant in town. The one Martin was always saving for, the one he said we'd go to when he finally got his promotion to head nurse. The one we could never afford because we were saving. Are you sure? David asked, his voice hesitant. That's a public place. What if he... I've never been more sure, I said. He took my cabin. He took my bed. He took my dignity. He is not taking my favorite steakhouse. I went to the closet in my apartment that afternoon. David stood guard at the door, and I took something. I took Martin's best suit. The expensive charcoal gray one he'd bought for a medical conference. I took it to a 1-hour tailor and had the pants taken in. That night, I put it on. The jacket was a little big, but with the sleeves rolled up, it looked powerful. I put on my best silk shirt, did my makeup, put my hair up. When David picked me up from the hotel, he was wearing a crisp button-down shirt and a blazer. He looked amazing. He whistled. "Wow, Caroline. That's his suit, isn't it?" "It is," I said, grabbing my purse. "Let's go." We looked like a power couple. We walked into Silver's. The hostess, a young woman who didn't recognize me, led us to a prime table in the middle of the room. I felt alive. I felt dangerous. And as we sat down, I saw him. Dennis. Martin's work best friend. One of his poker night buddies. He was at the bar with a few other hospital staff, all of them in their scrubs, having an after-shift drink. His eyes went wide. He saw me. He saw the suit. He saw David, this handsome, young, powerful-looking man I was with. He saw us laughing as I ordered the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. "Showtime," I murmured to David, taking a sip of my water. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his hand covering mine on the table for just a second. "I was born ready," I said. We were just ordering our appetizers, the shrimp cocktail and the calamari, when the restaurant doors flew open with a crash. It was Martin. His face was a blotchy, purple mask of rage. He hadn't shaved. He was still wearing the clothes from yesterday. He'd clearly been drinking. "Caroline," he screamed. The entire restaurant fell silent. Diners stared, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. He stalked toward our table, weaving slightly. "What the hell is this? Who is he?" He jabbed a finger at David. Then he seemed to really look at David. His eyes narrowed. He was trying to place him. "Wait," he slurred. You're a guy?" He let out a barking, hysterical laugh. He pointed at David, his voice rising to a shriek for the whole room to hear. "Babe! She hired a hooker. She hired a male hooker. After all that." He was trying to flip the script. To make me the villain. But then he made his mistake. He turned his rage back to me. "And you're paying for it with my money, aren't you? You froze the accounts, you bitch." He lunged forward and grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my bicep, yanking me up from the chair. David stood up so fast his own chair fell backward with a crash. "Get your hands off her," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. Martin, blinded by rage, shoved David in the chest. "This is between me and my wife, you little rent boy." "Not anymore," I said, yanking my arm free. I stumbled back. Martin's eyes were wild. He looked at the table, at the heavy water glass next to my plate. You ruined everything," he screamed. He snatched the glass. "You bitch!" He hurled it. Not at David. At me. David moved. He didn't even think. He just stepped right in front of me. The glass shattered against his shoulder with a dull, wet thud. Water and shards of glass flew everywhere. He winced, a sharp ah, leaving his lips, but he didn't move. He just stood there, a wall between me and Martin, glaring at my husband as water dripped from his blazer. The restaurant manager was on the phone. "Yes, police. Assault. Right now, at Silver's. Hurry." Martin froze. He looked at his hand. He looked at the shattered glass on the floor. He looked at David, who was calmly brushing glass off his shoulder. He realized, too late, what he'd done. In public. In front of 24 witnesses, all with their phones out, all recording. I stepped out from behind David. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would break my ribs, but my voice was steady. Ice cold. I looked at Martin, at his pathetic, shocked, drunken face. "You have until tomorrow night to get your things out of my apartment," I said, my voice carrying in the dead silent room. "I've already called a lawyer. We're done." Right at that moment, as the restaurant manager rushed over and I saw the flashing lights of a police car pulling up outside, I knew my old life was over. If you've been listening this far, please help me out by liking this video and commenting the number 1 down below. It lets me know you're here, that you're supporting me on this journey. It means more than you know. Just comment the number 1 so I can see you. And now, let me tell you what happened next. The divorce was messy, but fast. Martin was arrested for assault that night. He spent the night in jail. His lawyer, the one we had used to draft our wills, tried to argue that I was adulterous, that I had provoked him. My lawyer, Susan, just smiled. In the preliminary hearing, she played the restaurant's security footage. Frame by frame. Him grabbing me. Him throwing the glass. David shielding me. Then, she played the voicemail Martin had left on my phone, the one where he admitted to his weekend with Dr. Miles. And then, she called her star witness. David. He walked in, wearing a simple, clean-cut suit. He calmly testified that I had refused his services. That he had been paid in full by Martin. And then, he handed the judge a cashier's check for $3,000. "This is the money Mr. Miller paid me," he said, his voice clear and strong. "I'm returning it. I was never Ms. Miller's escort. I stayed as her friend, because I was afraid her husband was unstable and would hurt her. As you can see, I was right." The judge was not impressed with Martin. Because Martin's affair was premeditated, and his public assault was on video, the no-fault state rules suddenly had a lot of faults. I got the apartment. I got 70% of our assets, including the inheritance money my father had left me. And the judge ordered Martin to pay my legal fees. Dr. Miles? His wife found out. I may have sent an anonymous package to her lawyer, complete with copies of Martin's frantic texts and the resort reservation. She filed for divorce and took everything. His big promotion at the hospital was quietly revoked. His behavior was under review. He was transferred to a surgical center in another state. I hope he's miserable. And Martin? He was fired. The hospital couldn't keep a nurse on staff who had been arrested for assaulting his wife, after trying to pay off an escort to cover up his own affair with a doctor. The gossip was too much. Last I heard, he had to sell his precious car and was living in his mother's basement. And David? After the trial, he was just gone. He'd given his testimony, the check was cashed, and he vanished. He'd given me his new number, a burner phone, but I was so busy rebuilding my life, putting the pieces of myself back together, I never called. I tucked the number into an old copy of Wuthering Heights and I tried to move on. The next few years were quiet. I poured everything into my work. I wasn't just a traveling instructor anymore. I got a full-time, tenure-track position. I got that promotion I'd been working so hard for. For years later, I became the youngest department head in the college's history. I bought out Martin's share of the condo. I repainted the walls. I threw out all the old furniture. I made it my home. I dated a little, here and there. A nice history professor. A kind architect. But no one stuck. I was happy, though. I was content. I had my work, I had my friends. I had my life back. I even started a college fund for my niece, Teresa's daughter. Life was good. Then, 5 years after the divorce, it was a rainy Thursday night. I was home, grading midterms, a glass of wine on my desk. A real sense of déjà vu. I heard a knock on my door. I figured it was the pizza I'd ordered. I padded to the door, peering through the peephole. I didn't recognize the man. He was older, wearing a proper suit, his hair cut short. He looked professional. And he was holding a massive bouquet of pink roses. I opened the door, leaving the chain on. "Can I help you?" The man looked up from under the umbrella. And my heart, it just stopped. It was David. He wasn't a kid anymore. He was a man. He was 30. The 5 years had been good to him. He looked successful, confident, healthy. "Caroline," he whispered. I fumbled with the chain, my hands shaking. "David? Oh my God. What? How?" He smiled, that same soft smile I remembered from the cabin. The one that had made me feel safe. "Evening, ma'am. My name's David, and I've been hoping to meet you for quite some time." I undid the chain and let him in. I was speechless. He just stood in my living room, my new living room, looking around. "You redecorated," he said. Yeah. 5 years ago." I couldn't stop staring. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" He explained. He'd used the witness fee, the money I'd insisted he take after the trial, to pay off the last of his mother's medical debt. He'd graduated. With honors. He'd gotten that degree in textile engineering. He had a real career now. A good one. He was a senior designer at a big firm. I hired a private investigator, he admitted, a dark blush creeping up his neck. "About a year ago. Not to stalk you. I swear. Just to make sure you were okay. To know you were safe. That Martin never bothered you again. I needed to know." He looked at me, his eyes full of an emotion I couldn't name. "I told myself I wouldn't come near you. Not until I was someone who wasn't Shane. Someone who deserved to be in the same room as you. Someone who wasn't a mess." "David," I whispered, my eyes filling with tears. He stepped closer, extending the bouquet. "I never forgot you, Caroline. Not for one day." He took a deep breath. "I talked to my mom. I told her all about you. About what you meant to me then, and what you mean to me now. I'm not that kid anymore." He took my hand. It was warm and strong. "And if you'll have me, if you're willing to try. I'm not letting you go this time. I want to do this the right way." I looked at this man. The man who had seen me at my absolute worst, broken and sobbing on a cabin floor. The man who had been my protector, my ally, my secret keeper. The man who had waited 5 years to become someone he thought I deserved. And for the first time in 5 years, I cried. But this time, they were happy tears. "Yes," I whispered, smiling through the tears. "My answer is yes. Thank you for listening to my story. It's still hard to talk about sometimes, but sharing it helps. If you've been through anything like this, or just want to show your support, please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you liked this story, a like and a subscribe would mean the world to me. It lets me know I'm not alone in this. Thank you." And so, this story reminds us of the incredible strength it takes to rebuild a life shattered by betrayal. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the courage to walk away from what no longer serves us, and the power of self-worth. Caroline's journey wasn't just about overcoming heartbreak, it was about rediscovering her value, reclaiming her independence, and choosing to surround herself with people who truly honor and respect her. Life often throws us into storms we never anticipated, but it is in those moments of chaos that we find our true character. Caroline's story teaches us that even in the darkest of times, we have the ability to rise, to heal, and to create a future that aligns with the love and dignity we deserve. It also reminds us that kindness and integrity, even from unexpected places, can change lives in profound ways. What about you? What lessons did this story spark in your heart? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or simply type good if you found this reflection meaningful. Your voice matters.